What would happen if I told you that there is a switch that you can turn on inside of you that can help you reach optimal levels of intelligence, that can make you happier, that can help you experience more joy, more peace than you have ever felt before? I mean, I'm talking about optimal well-being, great mental health. Well, there's a very powerful book that I will read, and it's the only book that I want to be reading in 2025, and I'll tell you why. Before I tell you guys about this book that I'm talking about, I actually read this book a few years back, and it's a book that I constantly revisit because it talks about the one thing that we cannot escape. It's the one thing that you're always stuck to, and that's our mind. But beyond that, it's our physical brain. This book is so powerful because it really paints a picture of what happens in your mind when you're thinking positive and negative thoughts, and how whether the thoughts are positive or negative, they take up real estate inside your mind. So if those negative thoughts that you're experiencing are there and they're present, and it's a book that really helped me realize that I get to choose. I do have the power to choose how to discipline my thoughts and bring them captive, especially those negative thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and share with you a quote that is within this book that I think is very powerful. If you realized how powerful your thoughts are, you would never think a negative thought. Let that sit with you for a moment. Before I continue to tell you about this book and what's inside it, I'm even considering doing some lives. I know that we're going into 2025, and what we want to do going into 2025 is not wait for January to hit and to come for things to change. No, we want to be proactive in our mental health journey, in our lives, and we want to go ahead and position ourselves to have an amazing year. In order to do that, I was thinking of doing a 21-day mental detox, and I'm thinking of going live, reading a few pages of each chapter, and going ahead and maybe doing a real-time journaling session. I do want to share that my mind in like the natural state of my mind is chaos, like chaotic. It's extremely chaotic. I think about something and then it dives into another train of thought and then another train of thought. Sometimes, especially before, I struggled so much in the past to get my thoughts together and be able to communicate what I was feeling and my thoughts at the same time. It was so hard for me to articulate what I was actually feeling and going through in my mind, because I would be feeling a certain way, but I'm thinking something completely different. I didn't know how to have some type of clarity in my mind. I've experienced a lot of brain fog, and I think that the chaos that I have experienced for most of my life, with the exception of the past, since I became a mom, that's when I feel like my healing journey really began. In my childhood, I experienced a traumatic event and multiple traumatic events after that it led me to feel stripped of my innocence. It led me to feel completely confused, this sense of shame, the sense of I'm not good enough, something's wrong with me. So it's like a cloud that has always hovered above me. And I used to have and battle with the inferiority complex, where I always felt inferior no matter who I was next to. I could never really communicate my thoughts. I could never really communicate what I was feeling, what I was thinking. I feel like the trauma that I underwent, and also the fact that I experienced secondary trauma when it came to, just in my home. My home was not, for me, it didn't feel like a safe place up until I was 16 years old. My dad, although I love him to death, he's such a sweet man. When I was a child, for me, he represented something very dark. He was very sweet, very kind, But then, 12 o'clock, it was like a switch. 12 o'clock would come, or maybe even earlier than that, but he would transform into someone very violent, someone that was very disrespectful toward my mom. He emotionally abused her, and it was very traumatic for me to see my mother go through so much, and us going through. I remember the fear of just images in my mind where he would knock things down and break things, and I would hear the shattering, like the shattering of glass, and I didn't know whether I was safe. So I was always especially when Fridays would come, I was always in a state of fear, not knowing what would happen. Was he going to be violent today? I didn't know who to expect. So in anticipation of that, like what was going to happen, I developed a lot of insecurities in all of that. So it was like everything that I went through in my childhood, it was like put into this pot. I never dealt with it. I never sat down. I didn't know what emotional intelligence was. I didn't tell my family about what had happened to me when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And then, the molestation and things like that up until I was 16 years old, when I feel like I had to say something because, the school got involved and I made a comment, and the school psychologist, she had to go ahead and report it and things like that. So it became a huge thing, and I had to come, forward to my sister first and then to my mom about what had happened to me as a child. And that was a key moment in my life, because I started to talk more about, what had happened to me. I started dealing with that little girl that was hurt, and the school therapist helped me out tremendously. And I'll always be grateful for all the help and all the conversations that we had, because she really put into perspective that it was not my fault. So it really removed this little piece of shame that I was carrying, but there was still this immense cloud hanging over me, with all these just emotions jumbled, and the lack of feeling like I had a dad that I could really talk to and just be open with, and that love that I really needed, that communication like link wasn't there. So I looked for love and care and just affirmation and validation and approval in other people, other boys at the time, in my adolescence. And I was very confused about many things. So coming from that, and then giving my life to Christ, started going to church, becoming, committed to the life that I wanted to live. Like, who do I want to be? And after, years of being at church, then I got married, and then I became a mom. And when I became a mom, a lot of people dream of having a career. And I had a specific dream of a career that I wanted to pursue. And everyone has a dream, and everyone, and especially women, we have dreams. We have maybe career goals, and those are all beautiful things. But for me, becoming a mom, it wasn't like I gave up the career. No, I gained an even greater dream. It became the dream that I never thought I wanted. And for me, being a mom is very special, because it showed me the love of God. Like, it really showed me when I saw my son for the first time that I knew I felt. And I was like, okay, I'm a mom. I looked at my son, and I remember that I looked into his eyes, and I'm like, wow, like, God, you are real. Like, you created this little person, his eyelashes, his eyebrows, you knitted him in my womb. And he's so perfect. His hands, just his little nails. I mean, I was like, wow, this is a miracle. You created this little person inside of me. So you were so connected. Your hands were upon me. So then for me, that became another healing journey, because I felt like God was giving me another opportunity of actually, now I have my own family, and now I can create a different story. I can write a different story. I control the narrative within my home. A peaceful home, a home with love and joy, and with faith in God and Jesus in the middle, at the center of our family. So for me, it was an opportunity to turn things around and break chains and strongholds that were probably passed down, from generation to generation. And when it hit me, I was like, that's it. No more. It stops with me. So then now fast forward, it's 2024. I've gone through a tremendous healing journey. I've read hundreds of books, and this book in particular has helped me organize my thoughts. It has helped me learn and understand how to identify my thoughts. This is the first book that I ever read that truly helped me identify what I was feeling, identify my thoughts, and know that I have a choice once I have that thought. Once I can recognize that I have a thought, I can choose. Do I want to entertain this thought, or am I going to discard it? And how am I going to discard it? I have to do something. I have to be proactive to discard it. I cannot entertain a thought that will detain me in just moments of stress and anguish and lack of peace and anxiety. And more, I have come to learn, after reading hundreds of books, I have come to learn that I no longer want to read a book or have a goal of reading one book per month. Instead, I want to study this book as much as I can. And this is one of the books that you have to study and you have to go back to. Even if you only read this one book all year, this is the only book you need to read in 2025. I'm going to go ahead and share it with you. It's called Switch on Your Brain. She's amazing. And I love it because it has it's science plus God. So there is scripture within this book, but there's also a lot of science that goes into it. It talks about neuroplasticity. It's a book that I urge you need to read. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link down below. Go ahead and get your copy and start reading it. Read it slowly. I want to read something to you. And it's a little bit of the prologue. I'm going to go ahead and read the first 4 sentences. What would you do if you found a switch that could turn on in your brain and enable you to be happier, healthier in your mind and body, more prosperous and more intelligent? In this book, you will learn how to find and activate that switch. What you think with your mind changes your brain and body. And you are designed with the power to switch on your brain. And what is that switch? It's our mind. It's our mind. Now, let me read this. Science is finally catching up with the Bible, showing us the proof that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Breakthrough neuroscientific research is confirming daily that we instinctively knew all along. What we instinctively knew all along. What you are thinking every moment of the day becomes a physical reality in your brain and in your body, which affects your optimal and mental health. Which affects your optimal mental and physical health. I'm going to read that again. What you are thinking every moment of every day becomes a physical reality in your brain and body, which affects your optimal mental and physical health. I mean, and this is nothing. This is just part of the prologue. If you notice, it's such a beautiful depiction of what goes on in our minds and how to renew our minds. It is just powerful. I want to go ahead and read on something else that I thought was pretty interesting. And it talks about disciplining our thoughts. I had never heard that before. Discipline your thoughts. I've heard about just other types of disciplines, but I've never heard this concept of disciplining our thoughts. And I want to read to you something at the beginning of chapter 4. And chapter 4 is Catch Those Thoughts. The main scripture that she's going to be referring to in this chapter is, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. And that's 2 Corinthians 10:5. Now, that's the main scripture. Now, she went ahead and added right underneath that is linked science concept. So now we get sciencey, and I love it. When you objectively observe your own thinking with the view of capturing rogue thoughts, you in effect direct your attention to stop the negative impact and rewire healthy new circuits into your brain. This is a book you definitely have to read. And I'm going to go ahead and read 2 more sentences because this is so powerful. The ability to quiet your mind, focus your attention on the present issue, capture your thoughts, and dismiss the distractions that come your way is an excellent and powerful ability that God has placed within you. A lot of the like the sentences within this book, I've had to read multiple times, especially in those moments when I feel the most anxious, the most like I can't control my thoughts, like anxiety up the roof, stress. This is the book that has helped me tons when it comes to that. I recommend that when you read this book, you need an additional notebook, you need a highlighter, you need a pencil, because I erase and I go back and I edit and I go ahead and write my reflections and what I think and how I can apply this and how I can understand this better. It also talks about a metacog log, which if you're interested, I can go ahead and show you what that is and how I've created my own metacog logs in my in my journaling sessions. And I think it's a brilliant way of being able to not only, what's funny, it's not only is it a good way to remember information, it's a good way to organize your thoughts. If you're going to go ahead and go on this journey with me and read Switch on Your Brain, go ahead and leave your comment down below. I want to hear from you. What if you have already read this book? Tell me about it. What have you learned? What did you learn? What is your favorite chapter? And let's continue the conversation. I would love to hear from you. I hope you found this video helpful. Go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. God bless.